Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. I'm Anshu Jaising and you're watching a special report on education. India has achieved near universal enrollment, but the question is, have our children learnt enough and has the right of education achieved what it had set to accomplish? In this special report, we look at the various aspects of right to education, its successes and its failures.
In 2009, the government enacted the Right to Education Act. It entitled every Indian child between the ages of 6 and 14 years to a free and compulsory education. The following year, in April 2010, the Act came into effect. Today, 5 years later, the country has already missed 2 deadlines to fully implement it, and experts feel India is nowhere close to achieving its dream of complete literacy.
Right to Education Act is a very wide-ranging act. It deals with issues like a minimum standards of infrastructure in public and private schools, also deals with a reservation of seats for economically weaker sections in private schools. And at the other end of the spectrum, it talks about curriculum, teaching learning process in schools. So that way it has huge implications. And I would say some of these aspects are aspirational, really about vision and not about immediate implementation.
The RTE had a very ambitious nationwide plan. In addition to putting every child in school, it envisaged a proper education infrastructure that included sufficient teachers trained to equip their wards with the right learning, a healthy student-teacher ratio and proper schools. The Act did manage to bring more children to school, almost to the point just shy of near universal enrollment. It also focused much-needed attention to school infrastructure.
Well, activity plan where that every child will have 8 years of schooling. He will be able to get midday meals program. There would be a library. There would be playground. All this was very well intentioned, and there would be no examination. There would only be tests, monthly tests, quarterly tests. These tests would be communicated, and if the child is weak, teachers will give him extra attention. But today you find that a child is in class 5th, he cannot read the textbook meant for class 2. So therefore, as we are spreading education, we find quality is going down and government is not bothered.
First of all, they understand the importance of education. They want to educate their children. But when they see that after going 4-5 years in the school and children are not able to read and write, then they see that there is that their interest level decrease actually.
To keep children in the classroom, a key element of the Act was its emphasis on child-centric learning in an environment that is free of fear or anxiety. But a survey by an RTE forum reveals its failures. The study estimates that 6.04 million children between the ages of 6 and 13 years are out of school. 1 million more drop out before completing elementary education. 75% of them are from Dalit, tribal and Muslim communities.
We have not made any progress on some of the game-changing provisions of the right to education. To my mind, 2 very important ones. One is the provision to strengthen school management committees and give school management committees the capacity to monitor and plan for the schools. School management committees have been set up on paper everywhere. However, the quality of their engagement with the school is minimal, the quantum of money that they receive is minimal, the extent of powers and capabilities they have to actually do the job that they've been legally mandated to do is non-existent.
When it comes to trained teachers or even healthy teaching ratios, the picture is no less gloomy. Data from the District Information System for Education shows that 5.68 lakh teaching positions are vacant. A great number of those who are hired are on contract, and as many as 19.69% teachers are simply untrained.
5 years of implementation, 10% of our schools are single teacher schools. Many schools have pupil-teacher ratios of 70:1 or 100:1. Now, if civil society was to focus on one or two aspects and make a very spirited campaign and demand that teachers should be placed where they are needed, it would probably have some effect.
The RTE Act mandates some basic infrastructural norms for schools in terms of number of classrooms, boundary walls, playgrounds, separate toilets for girls and drinking water facilities. But 5 years after the Right to Education Act, compliance is still very slow, especially in the case of toilet for girls, boundary walls and playgrounds. Playgrounds are particularly scarce. In the financial year 2013-14, only 58% schools had playgrounds. Although between 2012-2013 and 2013-14, there was a significant 20% rise in the percentage of schools with girls' toilets. The number of students in a classroom also declined. From 32 in 2009-10, it came down to 28 in 2013-14. The Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan is the primary vehicle to implement the RTE. This flagship program to provide elementary education was launched in 2001. Today, its goals are to open new schools in areas that don't have them, address inadequate teacher numbers, and ensure life skills in elementary education.
The Right to Education tries to address the socio-economic imbalances in the country by setting aside seats for economically weaker section. But in all these years, the overall enrollment for this section has just been 29%. What's more, the huge disparity among the states indicate that the right is broadly misunderstood.
In 2013-14, 21.4 lakh seats were reserved for disadvantaged students across the country. Delhi accounted for 38,297 seats, of which 92% were filled. Madhya Pradesh filled 88% of its 1.82 lakh seats, while Andhra Pradesh found candidates for just 0.2% of its 1.72 lakh seats. Uttar Pradesh filled 3% of 5.84 lakh seats, Tamil Nadu 11% of 1.43 lakh seats, Maharashtra 19% of 1.42 lakh seats, Bihar had 20.78% candidates for 18,930 seats, while West Bengal did a shade better by filling 32.05% of 54,097 seats.
हमारे स्कूल में पढ़ाई ठीक से नहीं होती है। अगर टीचर नहीं आते तो अरेंजमेंट लगता है, तो वो वाले टीचर नहीं आते, और आते हैं तो अपने बातों में लगे रहते हैं, बच्चों की तरफ बिल्कुल भी ध्यान नहीं देते हैं.
There have been a number of studies in India that tell us that teacher accountability is an extremely serious problem. Teacher absenteeism is extremely high. The last nationwide study pinned it at about 25%. And not only is teacher absenteeism high, what makes it even more worrying is there is no guarantee that if a teacher shows up in school, the teacher actually teaches. So that is an indicator of how deep-seated the governance failure is in India.
situation is no different for private schools. Data from 28 states for Class 1 shows this. Out of 2,06,000 private unaided schools, only about 45,000 or less than 25% enrolled students in 2013-14. Rajasthan had the highest proportion of 65%, Delhi had 48% and Uttarakhand 43%. Andhra Pradesh had just 0.1%, while Odisha with 1% and Uttar Pradesh with 2% were the states with the lowest participation rate.
It frowns upon such schools, which I call budget schools for the rural poor, but which are being run by private institutions. After all, if government is not able to attract students, and the number of students in government schools is declining very fast.
Among the successes in the field of education, India can count gender parity in primary and secondary education. In fact, it is the only country in South and West Asia to have ensured this. It has done this mainly by providing free textbooks, recruiting female teachers, holding back-to-school camps and bridge courses. But apart from the stray successes, in a broader context, India has failed to make much impact in education. Illiteracy has reduced only marginally, from 18% in 2000 to 14% in 2015.
It's time for us to head into a small break. When we return, we look at the challenges faced by Right to Education. Welcome back. The Right of Education Act aims at making India the strongest democracy in the world by providing its children with right to free education. However, implementing the act is a big challenge. It does not require monitoring but identifying children who require the education and setting up basic facilities to ensure it.
सुनो घंटी बजी स्कूल की चलो स्कूल तुमको पुकारे.
From the year 2000 to 2012, programs like the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and the Midday Meal Scheme not only brought many children to schools but also reduced the number of dropouts by as many as 16 million. Despite this, the brutal truth is that a large number of children are still out of school and many teaching posts are vacant. To top it, till 2014, 12 state governments have closed or merged over 80,000 schools.
The most important is this, that RTE is not being internalized as an entitlement of children. You know, the entitlements and rights-based approach is missing. So most people see it as a program, a scheme that is there to construct new schools or open schools, toilets, etc. But not as something that provides a guarantee of minimum school conditions and quality of education for all children. So till that happens, an act itself cannot achieve too much.
In a reply to the Rajya Sabha, the Ministry of Human Resource Development disclosed that for not complying with RTE norm, 1,170 schools were closed in Punjab in 2013. 4 were shut down in Himachal Pradesh and 5 in Kerala during 2014-15. Rajasthan closed or merged 142 schools, mainly for zero enrollment.
That's why public awareness, democratization of the system, open to scrutiny by the local educational community, giving them the power to supervise and observe the performance of the school under the these new instruments. Unless this is done and the leadership is made accountable, both to the lower level, to the committee and the SMC, and also to the higher level, unless this is done, there will be no transparency and accountability.
The RTE Act is the only legislation anywhere in the world that makes the government responsible for ensuring enrollment, attendance and completion of elementary education. But parents feel it has been a tall promise so far.
मैं जब भी अपने बच्चों के लिए स्कूल में एडमिशन के लिए जाता हूं तो बोलते हैं कि अभी सीट खाली नहीं है और क्या कहते हैं आप ये पेपर की ज़रूरत है, इनकम सर्टिफिकेट और एक दो पेपर का बोलते हैं, वो हम कोशिश भी करते हैं तो उनमें में टाइम निकल जाता है, उनकी सीट फुल हो जाती है और हमारे बच्चों का एडमिशन नहीं हो पाता.
Suppose there are government schools and they find nearby many schools are there and the admissions of these kind of children are not there. They should decide a group. These children will go to particular school and they should give the list, and definitely these school will take the admission of these children. Then the responsibilities of government and us. Parents will automatically come to us and we have to give the same education to them. So then it will be decided that we have to give the admission to these children. It's compulsory, it's mandatory.
What is most important is from school level to state level, there is no mechanism. So you cannot expect a parent who's aggrieved in a village to be filing something with a state level body or going to a court. We have to institutionalize a grievance redressal mechanism that looks at complaints of non-compliance of RTE from between school to state levels. That's another big issue.
A recent report on the state of education in India shows that parents are moving to private schools.
The words given on your slip with a picture here, right?
In rural areas, the proportion of students aged 6 to 14 enrolled in private schools has grown from 22% in 2009 to 31% in 2014. In many states, over 50% children are studying in private schools. Budgetary allocation for elementary education has gone up in the last 5 years. Between 2010-11 and 2015-16, allocations for elementary education increased 13% from 29,011 crore rupees in 2010-11 to 32,917 crore rupees in 2015-16. Elementary education accounted for 48% of the total budget for the Ministry of Human Resource Development in 2015-16. But allocations might be the easy part. The harsh truth is that India stands far behind in learning outcomes, since equality education needs constant focus and an unchanging commitment.
The quality of education is a serious concern. The government may well be bringing in children to the schools, but the fact is they're learning very little. Even after spending several years in school, they can't read or write. That is why experts are demanding renewed focus.
According to the 2014 report, 51.9% of class 5th students in Bihar cannot read a second-class book. The numbers were 53.3% for Rajasthan and 55.3% for UP. Against a national average of 51.9%, Kerala has a far better report card, with a comparatively less 33.2% class 5th students unable to read a second-class textbook.
Till about last year, learning outcomes wasn't very important for the policymakers. Neither was assessment. You see, unless you have a culture of assessment, you wouldn't know what the problem is. Assessment also leads to accountability. You follow me? All this didn't exist in our country.
I think if one can link the learning assessment process with a financial reward that emphasizes outcomes, we should be able to move forward in the right direction to create an entire administrative system and governance structure for education that is only focused on achieving the one goal of improving learning in India's schools.
To help children benefit from its schemes, the government needs to shift focus by having child-friendly and inclusive learning environments. More importantly, it needs trained teachers and proper training programs.
Today expenditure is only 3%. Even that is being wasted because teachers are getting huge salaries. At least they get 30 to 40,000 rupees a month. They are not teaching. But a teacher in a private school which gets only 5,000 to 8,000, he is teaching because he is being supervised and his performance is being watched by the person who is employing him. So therefore, accountability of government system is very weak.
Experts are demanding proper monitoring of RTE, not just on the basis of infrastructure but learning outcomes. They want states to be made more accountable towards achieving set goals. According to them, teachers can do this by collecting and analyzing data.
The real foundation of learning and education is primary education, the early years. And if we cannot ensure that children get high quality education at that time through teachers who are competent and committed, that gap and deficit can never be made up, in secondary education or higher education. So I think it's very, very crucial to give the maximum importance to the elementary education.
More disheartening is the fact that while allocations to the school sector was around 43,000 crore in the 2013 and 14 budget, they were cut around 10% the next year. Moreover, a bigger percentage of resources were set aside for higher education. All this defeats the very purpose of encouraging primary education that would pay dividends in the long run. That's all in this special report. We will be back with a new report. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.